It's always a pleasure to have our friend, great patriot, Senator Ron Johnson on the program. Senator, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Mark. Hope you are, too.
I'm doing great. Country's going to hell, but I'm fine, Senator. So you have found even more information, haven't you? I see James Comer here. They go over Treasury. They look at these suspicious wires and so forth. They go, holy mackerel, now there's 9 more family members involved. What do you see here?
Well, first of all, just to update everybody, Senator Grassley and I, we really ramped up our investigation tail end of 2019 and into 2020. And it's important for everybody to realize that Hunter Biden knew we were investigating him because we were inviting him to interview with us if he was innocent, to come in, explain things. But, we were able to look at those Treasury reports through the end of 2019. But then, 2020 was COVID. We didn't get any more records. Then, of course, we unfortunately lost the Senate and our chairmanship, so we didn't have the capability of at least threatening compulsion, threatening subpoenas. So what James Comer's looking at now are more suspicious activity reports. But, in our September 2020 report and our follow-up in November of 2020, we pretty well laid out the case. I mean, now we're getting a few more details. There's no doubt about it. But, we pointed out the vast web of foreign financial entanglements, the grifts that the Biden family were involved in, Sarah and James Biden, Hunter Biden. Obviously, Tony Bobulinski came forward with the laptop and talked about the big guy in 10%. So there's been more than enough information out there, certainly to convince what I think most Americans, if they honestly knew about this, not to elect a fully compromised president, which is what President Biden is. But unfortunately, when we released our report in September 2020, it was ignored when it wasn't being vilified by the media. The day after that, we were actually offered Hunter Biden's computer. We did our due diligence. We went to the FBI, asked them what they knew about it. They dodged us for weeks until Mr. McIsaac got impatient and turned that over to Rudy Giuliani in the New York Post. But it's important to understand what the FBI did. They picked up that computer in December of 2019. On the way out, one of the agents looked at McIsaac and said, it's our experience that people that don't talk about these things, they don't get in trouble. That was their first shot across the bow.
So that's a threat.
It was a threat, and then they continued to lay sabotage or lay down the groundwork to sabotage just in case McIsaac surfaced that computer, including things like secure briefings to Senator Grassley and I, which were total BS. We knew they were set up. Trying to say that we were targets of Russian disinformation and could be targeted toward, presidential candidate's family. I mean, that's how the FBI, how corrupt they were in trying to cover up for Hunter Biden. Then, of course, we were getting more information now in terms of, who was in charge of that letter from 51 intelligence officials that, got.
Do we know yet? Because that's crucial.
Yeah, Jim Jordan is interviewing those folks, and more and more of that information is going to be coming out. So, again, they can hide, but in the end, I think this information will come out. But, again, all this was known prior to the election, but it was suppressed by the complicit and corrupt media. They are continuing to cover up for the Bidens. Listen, you're covering this stuff on your show, on other talk radio, and some conservative news stations, this is being covered, but the mainstream media, they couldn't care less about this. This isn't getting any airplay. No. So they will continue to cover up for the corrupt Biden family. And again, we're starting to see how extensive this is. I mean, in our report, we talked about the payments made to what was obvious women who are being human trafficked, thousands, tens of thousands of dollars over the course of a couple of months. By the way, at the same time when Joe Biden was offering to pay something like $100,000 to Hunter Biden's bills. So, no, all this information has been known. We're getting more details on it, but we're talking about a corrupt family. We've turned over our records. Not only did we have the Treasury records, but we use those then, as investigators should, to get the actual records. So, we asked banks. It's interesting that Cathay Bank turned over their records without any compulsory process whatsoever. That's interesting, isn't it? And so we talked about those on the floor of the Senate, and we turned those over to U.S. Attorney Weiss, who supposedly been investigating this thing since December 2018. Hunter's admitted to that. This is 2023. We turned over hundreds of pages of bank documents to U.S. Attorney Weiss. We haven't heard anything back. We've asked about, for example, was Nicholas McQuaid when he was the head of the criminal division of the Justice Department. He was an attorney with Hunter Biden's defense attorneys. Was he going to recuse himself in this case? We never got any response from either U.S. Attorney Weiss or from Merrick Garland. So, again, where is the investigation? Plus, we have an FBI whistleblower come to our office and said, the U.S. Attorney Weiss's office doesn't have anywhere near the resources they need to conduct a realistic investigation, which would follow up on these suspicious activity reports, go to the banks, subpoena all the bank records, not only the inflows. And again, we showed millions of dollars flowing in and out of these accounts, okay, wire transfers. But what about the outflows to, I don't know, Cayman Islands or the Bahamas? Where did this money go to as they sprinkled them around to other members of the Biden family, potentially including the big guy who supposedly got 10% potentially?
Senator Johnson, there is so much here. It's almost overwhelming. And the idea that this doesn't trigger a special counsel investigation from somebody outside of the Merrick Garland Department of Justice, meanwhile, the documents cases do, is disgusting. It is beyond belief. The Mueller investigation, they had nothing. And then that's triggered. And you look at this, you have you and Grassley in the report you've put out, and you've both been very, very public. You have Bob Alinsky, who's been very, very public. You have the damn laptop out there. The information in the laptop is everywhere. It's more than credible. It's more than a little bit of stuff. And I have in front of me, Senator, the grounds for appointing a special counsel, 28 CFR Section 600.1. And it's all on Merrick Garland's shoulders. The Attorney General, in cases in which the Attorney General is recused, the acting Attorney General will appoint a special counsel when he or she determines that criminal investigation of a person or matter is warranted, and A, the investigation or prosecution of that person or matter by a U.S. Attorney's Office or litigating division of the Department of Justice would present a conflict of interest for the department, and B, that under the circumstances, it would be in the public interest to appoint a special outside counsel to assume responsibility for the matter. So how do you do it on the documents case and not this, which is loaded with money and intrigue? It's loaded with emails and a laptop and the findings on the wire transfers and the communists in China. Not only that, they're back in the Penn Center so he can take $900,000 salary. Wouldn't any average attorney general say, I better appoint somebody to look into this?
Well, they would, particularly if you had a media that was unbiased and held both sides equally accountable. But that's not what we have. We have a corrupt and complicit mainstream media. And we don't have equal application of justice. You're fully aware of that, Mark. You're right. I mean, our nation is in serious trouble. This is not what a nation looks like that is governed by the rule of law. Not at all. This is the road down toward tyranny, toward totalitarianism. I try and remind people that, Venezuelans voted themselves into poverty in just a couple decades. When you vote for socialists, when you vote for radical leftists, you end up impoverishing your nation and turning your nation into a nation of tyranny and totalitarianism. And that's the path that the Biden administration has put us on. This is a lawless administration, as was the Obama administration. But they're not held accountable by the mainstream media. We need a free press, but we need one that's largely unbiased and holds both sides equally accountable, but that's not what we have. And so they can just brazenly do this, pick favorites, not equally apply justice, and they get away with it. And so they'll keep doing it.
100% right. Senator, I want to thank you. Please keep up your great work. You're a great patriot, and you've become a very good friend of the program as well. Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, take care of yourself.
Take care. Thanks for what you do.